Good morning out there, traders. It is May 30th, 2024, and welcome to the Apteros Daily Market Insight. Let's start with our recap, and then, as usual, we'll update our session plan and levels for today. So, taking a look at what's going on here from yesterday, it was pretty straightforward. It actually played out exactly kind of as expected in this type of context. We were overall more bearish in this market, but we had a big problem for the bears. We had to get through this particular area and really break it with some energy behind it. And essentially during the entire trading session, this bullish area was holding up, holding up, holding up, and the bears just wouldn't let the bulls take over the market. And we eventually get the release that we were looking for. And now the bears have kind of taken over a little bit more clearly in the ES market. But with our planning and prep yesterday, it was more or less monitoring this bull line in the sand to see if the bulls actually would take over and push this market back up into the bear zones and then test the bears out. And they never were able to do that. So essentially what we were looking at here is coming into the open, we ended up bottoming out and having good opportunities to get long off of our line in the sand for the bulls. It just never makes it up into this target zone, and we end up going sideways for the remainder of the session. And the longer and longer an area like this doesn't really release, doesn't really, press out to any further highs, essentially creating a structure like this, the weaker and weaker it becomes. This is a factor that we call recency. And the recency as the day went on in this zone was getting weaker and weaker and weaker until eventually our overall bias, our overall bearish understanding of the context of this market took over and we broke through that level. So that really was kind of the nature of the game for yesterday. In terms of DMI opportunities, the lows down here were a great opportunity coming into the open. And then, of course, from there, excuse me, any subsequent possible, little scalps along the way were available to us just coming into the highs of the day and so forth. So that really was kind of the only real DMI based opportunity if you were willing to trade against our overall trend or overall bias for yesterday and just use this line in the sand as is. All right, so now let's take a look at what's going on today. So the general idea of what's happening today is that as we move lower, we start going back into old value areas, into open space and so forth. So for today, we really only have one line in the sand, and it's bearish in nature. So scenario one is that we remain bearish underneath this zone. The overall target for this bearish move on the first leg of it would really be down here into this neutral area down below. So in other words, what we could end up seeing is kind of the market just stabilizing here, pushing down, accepting below this neutral level, and that might be really the only opportunity we end up getting. If that doesn't happen, we end up pulling back into our line in the sand. It's kind of operation as normal, looking for a pullback to hold and continue to the downside, targeting this first neutral area and then targeting this area down below there. Now with scenario two, if we end up seeing this market kind of rally and the bulls really take over and we get back up into yesterday's kind of choppy area, that would be the first inclination that the bearish picture is a little weaker today, and that we'd be looking for something like that, a little value traversal across from the 86s to the 95s. And then if we continue to rally out from there, we have neutral levels up above, and the overall destination or target is really up into this zone here between the 15s and the 19 area, somewhere up into there. And that would be kind of the bullish scenario in scenario two. And that's really the scenario breakdown for us today. If things get, a little wild for whatever reason, there is a stretch target down below here with this neutral level, a couple of neutral levels down below. And of course, the bullish side of things, if the market really starts to rally again, we still have this overall bearish context up above from one of our upper time frames to monitor if we really start rallying out of that zone. So definitely something to pay attention to and just kind of showing you the edges of what could happen. But this really is the bulk of what we're planning for today. So that's kind of the overall expectations. Scenario one, generally more bearish. That's our overall bias at this point in this market. If we're still not completely in the clear for like an all bearish, type of, ES, but we're getting closer to that. And you can see we only really have one line in the sand to be operating on today, and it is bearish in nature. All right. So trade well out there, mind your risk, and let's have a great trading day.